Hello, how's it going? You're another episode of Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, and my co-host, my regular co-host Elizabeth, said last week it was going to be her last show, so we're going to miss her. I'm going to miss my frickin' hand grenade. She had the hand grenade.
Oh, she has it?
She has the hand grenade.
That's not right.
And how can I go attack her and try to take it from her because she's got the pin still in it?
We're going to have to get another one.
I don't know.
She's taking that on the road with her? Is that legal?
I don't know. We should hunt her down and take it, though.
Yeah, that's going to be
anyway.
tricky. We'll figure that out later.
So I'm sitting in with me today is my favorite daughter, Anna Hopper.
Do you have a hand grenade, Anna?
Not with me.
No,
Right.
she's
Got
got
in my other purse.
Yeah.
she's got a baby on board though. That's just like a hand grenade only.
It takes 9 months to go off.
Yeah, it goes, but when it goes off, it's brutal. Okay, so anyway, today we're having the show is on. I kind of wanted to get some state reps in here that are freshmen to get an idea what they think about being up in Concord. I'm pretty sure most of them are just doing it for the money. You know.
You can tell.
So we got Representative Wynn Hutchinson and Representative Ross Terrio and Representative Mike Ball. And I'm going to let you guys introduce yourself one at a time, starting from the, I guess.
The eldest.
I wasn't gonna say that out loud.
I can't tell which one that is.
Yeah, my name's Wynn Hutchinson. I'm state rep from Ward 2 here in Manchester, which is on the semi-north end. It's up around Dairyfield Park, that area of the city. Republican. Been in the city for a while, but I bought a house here in '96. And I'm the ward moderator as well. So I have a little experience in the city.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, go ahead.
Ross Terrio, State Rep for Ward 7, so over near Memorial High School.
Yeah.
And as we're speaking, my daughter, Small World, is in your wife's class.
Yeah.
I'm also a candidate for school committee at large in this year's city elections.
And I'm Mike Ball, and I'm also from Ward 2. So Wynn and I both represent the fashionable east side of Manchester, and I'm in the commercial real estate business here, and I've lived in Manchester since 1998.
So you're in real estate.
Yeah.
And Ross is a drug dealer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pharmacist.
Prolific
Oh,
drug dealer.
pharmacist.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah,
Potato, potato.
Same
Yeah,
thing.
really, same thing.
This is a big mistake.
He's a dispenser. He's a dispenser. Of
We needn't get bogged down in semantics.
Yeah, I know, that's just
What, are you retired?
I'm retired and working.
You're retarded and working?
I'm retarded and working. I must be retarded if I'm still working.
I noticed you drooling.
I work part-time for, you didn't have to call me. I work part-time for an insurance underwriting company, and I do home studies in Hillsborough County. And
Okay.
some Rockingham, some Merrimack, but mostly Hillsborough.
All right. So what motivated, I mean, obviously you ran for office for the money.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I mean, everybody does that,
Yeah.
but what other possible motivation could you have to go up there and be abused and
Well,
The ladies.
the ladies?
yeah. No, it wasn't that either.
So it wasn't the groupies?
No,
No? Okay.
The ones that throw rocks? No.
No.
No, I have always been of the mind that if you're going to bitch, then you better be willing to work. And I've been complaining for a long time. And I ran a couple of times before. I ran in the wonderful year of 2008 with the Obama landslide.
You didn't do well.
I didn't do it.
No.
If you had an R beside your name, that meant retarded and go to rest. So the only Republican who got elected in our ward was Saggy Tahir at the time, and Saggy he's a guy that could cross party lines anyway. He was a good rep.
It's funny because Saggy was he was in some ways was one of the most honorable state reps up there.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't even take, what happens in Concord is if the Heart Association wants to get you into a room to explain to you, about legislation or, cancer stuff or whatever, they'll have a free lunch,
Yeah.
okay? And that's all it takes for me. I don't care. Free lunch, I'm there. You know what I'm saying? I've learned that. I learned that as a freshman. But Saggy would not even take a free lunch.
Wow.
I don't either.
Oh,
Good for you.
I went to one and I felt like somebody had their hands in my pocket.
Yeah.
I went to the Dental Association meeting down here at Manchester Country Club, and that was the only one I've been to, and I won't go to another one.
oh yeah, no, I go to every single one of them. I don't care.
You can compartmentize it, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's just
No,
it's just food.
no, it's Tip O'Neill's actually my hero.
Yeah.
And he said, he said, if you can't take money from somebody and then go vote against them, you don't belong in politics. Well, I'm the same way, except it's
Ah.
food.
Right. Right.
You know, same thing. Same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. That makes sense.
You know,
Yeah.
my basic philosophy is you can't let pride and self-respect stand in the way of advancement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, that's a
Absolutely.
unique philosophy, but I guess that's okay.
I work in the music industry. I get it.
Yeah,
I
same
totally
thing.
get it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, Representative Terrio, what is your sadistic or masochistic side that forced you to run for office?
Originally from Massachusetts, been a
Whoa,
Republican.
whoa! You don't want to say it in the air. Try that again.
Originally from Massachusetts.
You can bleep that out.
You're a little far from the mic, by the way. Just
And
wanna make sure we can hear you.
just frustrated because you knew your vote was never going to count down there. You were never going to be able to make a difference. So I always thought about politics, but I knew I had to let it go down there. But when I moved up here back in the 90s, I changed my mind, decided to get back into it. That, in the 4 years that the Democrats were running Concord, the 24% budget increase was that was out of control and irresponsible.
Right. Okay. Mike?
Well, I used to be the morning show host at WGIR for 4 years, and I did a lot of complaining about government, so I got to be an expert at it.
At
And
complaining?
at complaining, and well, yeah, both, and complaining about government.
And self-promotion.
And self-promotion, and unlike Wynn, Wynn said he doesn't take lunches. To make up for that, I take 2 lunches when I go.
Well, he's on Social Security, though.
Yeah, well, that's
That's right, yeah, I make all the money.
and so in fact, there is a such thing as a free lunch. It's Wynn's, and I make it. I was sitting in the living room with my daughter one evening, and complaining about what was going on in Concord and in Washington D.C. And my daughter said, "Well, Dad, you've complained about it for so long. You ought to go do something about it." So I decided to throw my hat in the ring and accidentally got elected, like these guys. And next thing I know, we were up in Concord. And really, I think Ross touched on it, the out of control spending. When I moved here in '98, we had a very small state budget, and it just skyrocketed out of control. And seeing the Democrats being in control for 4 straight years, and the sky's the limit type of spending, it's got to stop sometime. And fortunately, we were able to stop it this time, but
Yeah.
got a long way to go still.
Yeah, I remember their last term, it was like every cotton picking session, there was another fee. I think they called them fees more often than taxes,
Right.
because that was more socially acceptable. It was relentless. It was constant. It was relentless. I remember a guy from Hillsborough wanted a fee on every 55-gallon drum of oil or whatever that any business had in their corporation as a machinist. That's a lot of barrels.
Right.
You got coolant all over, barrels of coolant. And so I asked him, how much is Sylvania's up in his district? I says, do you have any idea how much that's going to cost Sylvania? Oh, I don't know, but we really need the money.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. But so, Wynn, you had one win so far. You were co-sponsor of the bill to allow cities and state towns or principalities and such to have a cap, sales
That's
tax,
right. Yeah.
property tax cap.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. How'd that go? How'd you like doing
I
that?
like doing that. I was one of the petitioners for the original one here in Manchester. I saw what they did here when they didn't want to do it. They kept trying to postpone the inevitable, and then they took it to court. And this legislation was necessary in order to stop the nonsense. and allow people to make up their own minds. I mean, there's still a way for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and they would, believe me, if they had to, raise taxes. But they have to stand up and say, I'm for that. I'm going to raise your taxes. I'm going to vote for that. And that it takes a lot more courage than just going along with the mayor's budget or the school board's budget or whatever. So, yeah, it was an important piece of legislation, and one that I was glad I was able to be a part of.
What did you think about the process specifically?
Well, you know, the Senate's supposed to be the place where you pour the hot stuff from the house in to cool down.
Yeah,
They got a leak in their saucer,
yeah, yeah.
and they keep sopping it up and adding their own language, and it's unfortunate, but that's the way it works. And you know, another freshman who is absent here tonight, but I guess I can quote him. So, you know, he says, I don't like making sausage. He says, then don't watch. I mean, you know, because, you know, really, I mean, it's, you know, you go there with you know, we're going to do this, right? And then you find out that there is a process, and the process is rather unwieldy and very unattractive. But if that's what it takes to get it done.
Do you think that's a common experience? People get into it thinking it's going to be easier than it is?
I think it depends on the naivete of the person going in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think for a freshman, I think that's part of the deal. You
Yeah.
know, seeing how it works and how it doesn't.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have to go back on how many vetoes. I mean, you know, and most of them I think will be fine on. There's a couple that are going to be tight.
And going in as a legislator, do you find that it's easy to learn the process, or do you really have to fight to figure it out on your own? Is it set up so that new legislators are on an even playing field and have that opportunity?
No. I don't know how the others feel, but it's like.
I think you have
I
to get a little
agree.
closer
Yeah,
to that.
you're really.
I don't know about, you know, the others, but I feel like, you know, when you're a freshman, you know, stand over there in the corner, speak when you're spoken to, and don't do too much. Well, unfortunately, this time, they had a problem, because the freshmen are not the wallflowers that they might usually expect, and that they think they're getting a lot more input from the first-timers than they ever did before. And that's a good thing. But it's not designed for the freshmen to go in and be successful initially. I don't know about you guys. What do you think?
I would agree with it. There's a huge gap in experience. A lot of people come with, they might be freshmen, but they have city and town elective office. They've held, you know, elective office in cities and towns. You know, I've always been politically aware and watching the process, even though I haven't been up there. And they do have an orientation, but yeah, there's definitely some people who know what they're doing and some people who are struggling. To that effect, I don't know if you folks saw my email, but I wanted to bring in one of the law schools, either Franklin Pierce and possibly Mass School of Law, to have an education class for the legislators on constitutional law and just different areas of law to help them educate them.
I know when I had a meeting, my committee, the governor was pretty nice. This is the first time the governor's ever done this that I know of, because I've been up there a while, and this is the first time that I was invited to something like this. But he had my committee and a couple other committees together for like a continental breakfast.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell continent that's from, because it really isn't breakfast. But anyway, really thin continent. Anyway, so we were up there, and he was asking, does anybody have any advice? And I said it would be really cool if legislators could, I don't know what the term is called, but if you could sit in on college courses for free.
Auditing.
Audit.
Yeah.
Audit college courses, not get credit, like you're not going to get credit for it, but so that, like, if somebody goes on to Health and Human Services Committee, because they could actually sit in on classes about that subject matter, so they'd have, you know, a lot better understanding. You know, because a good percentage of the legislators are retired and would actually have the time and wherewithal to do that. So I don't know if they're going to do anything with that, but it is true when you're a freshman, you're, you know, pretty ignorant. I've been up there since 2000, and I've remained pretty ignorant. I kind of,
Ignorance is bliss.
oh, yeah.
Gary, you're
I'm going
modest.
for the gold, what?
You are modest.
Well, yeah, I think kind of echoing what Wynn and Ross said. There has been a little bit of the feeling that freshmen should be seen and not heard. There's been a little bit of that, but I think also this time we had a huge number of freshmen, and many of them were very ideologically driven. And you saw that nationwide also. A lot of Tea Party type folks, a lot of libertarian leaning type folks who knew exactly what they wanted to do, knew exactly what they believed in, and they have the advantage in the New Hampshire House. There's 400 of us. It's very hard to lobby 400 people. That's why most of the politicking and the lobbying goes on in the Senate. So you can go to the State House as a freshman and have this ideology, whatever it is, stick to it without anybody giving you any grief, vote the way you want. There's really no heavy pressure there. But then when the bill goes to the Senate, that's where the lobbying is. It's easier to lobby 24 people.
Right.
You only got to get a couple of them to go your way. And that's why my brother challenged me to cuss on television, but I'm not going to. We send a decent bill to the Senate, and turns into dog food. Let's just say that. And it comes back and it doesn't look anything like what we sent them, and everybody put their fingerprints on it, and we find out, unfortunately, there's not as many conservative people in the Senate as we thought there were. So hopefully that'll be remedied in the future, but you never know. So it's there's been quite a few bills that have come back that bear very scant resemblance to what we sent them. So it just seemed like a situation where things were deleted or added that made it not exactly what the House intended. But I think that's part of the learning process also.
I'm sorry, I was just going to ask when that happens. Is it to the point where you feel like they're watered down, or are they oftentimes just completely changed?
Well, Reggie's one of them. A good example is the budget itself. We crafted in the House a pretty tough budget. Everybody's feeling good about it. That's one main reason everybody could say they were elected to address the budget. It goes to the Senate, and immediately, before it even gets there, we start seeing things in the newspaper and hearing things on the television. Oh, well, that part of it's going to be taken out, or we're going to add this back in. Don't worry about what that is a function of the lobbying. When there's 5,000 people out in the front yard of the State House screaming and yelling, well, it's hard to pinpoint a particular House member to put the pressure on them.
Right.
But when there's 5 or 6 people that might go one way or the other in the Senate, and they get 1,000 phone calls, that has a big impact on them. And so that we saw some things when the budget came back. I'm sure you thought about this as well. When we had to vote on HB2, a lot of people refused to vote on it, even though it's half a loaf is better than none, because they had to want to stand on principle. Other people said, well, if we give them the Senate a second crack at it, who knows what it's going to look like then? Let's go ahead and take the good deal that we've got,
Sure.
and rather than stand up and say, no, I'm not going to take it unless I get 100% of what I want. Send it back to the Senate, it might get 20% of what you want. So you might as well just take it now and make at least one step, and then we'll do some more next time. But that was a tough lesson to learn.
It truly is a microcosm of Washington.
Yeah.
If you really think about it. What the Tea Party coalition tried to do in D.C. was stand hard on their principles. But in the final analysis, some people who really didn't want to vote for that debt ceiling bill felt they had to because, well, first of all, they didn't want to run the economy off the cliff.
Right, exactly.
And secondly, they wanted to back the speaker. And that happens in Concord as well.
Sure.
And you want to stand up with leadership and say, it's not what we wanted, but it's better than what we had. And so, and we did that, the same thing with the shoreline protection. That was the same thing. That came out of, that was a Senate bill. And it somehow ended up, it got vetoed, but it got put back in HB2, which was a budget trailer. And I said, what's it doing there?
Yeah, it gets pretty messy.
It gets
Did they
messy.
attach Reggie to that in the end?
Yes.
They
I think that's
attached,
what I mean.
yeah, they tried
Okay,
to.
wait. If you can talk, you're talking to people that probably have no clue what Reggie is.
Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, basically cap and trade on carbon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Reggie for short.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was a bill the Democrats pushed through, I think, two or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're trying to get out of it because all it does is add, if you look at electric bill, correct? I get, like I said, I get brain damage, so. It just adds money to everybody's bill, and it really doesn't do anything. It's a feel-good,
Sure.
Well, one of the main arguments that the Democrats have made, it's a 10 states in the Northeast, all the way down to New Jersey and all the way up to Maine.
Not anymore,
Have
New
got,
Jersey.
well, New Jersey, believe it or not, is they have a decent governor. New Jersey's leading the way as a conservative state, for a change, which is good. But one of the arguments that the Democrats made was, well, we've spent so much money on it already, we can't pull out now, which is exactly what we have a problem in Washington, D.C.
Right, exactly. yeah.
And
that's why they get pregnant so easy.
yeah, that's.
yeah.
I wasn't going to go there, but you make a good analogy there, Gary.
That is a good analogy. That's funny.
Oh man.
Okay, I want to ask you, sorry.
I'm genuinely
I'm not-
surprised you went there.
No. Yeah, it gets worse. For people that have never run for office, should touch on, what do you do to run for office? First, you have to be motivated. For those people out there who don't know, New Hampshire legislators make $100 a year, and sometimes we get mileage.
Not this
And
month.
tolls, and
not,
tolls.
not this month.
Not
Will.
this
And tolls.
Only if you're on a
tolls.
retained building.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And the prestige.
And the number plate.
Where'd you get that?
It's a 25-cent word there, Gary.
No, the prestige. I haven't gotten that yet.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah, they'll mail it to you.
They'll
You
mail it.
usually find it on the bottom.
You lost yours when you just got on the House floor to talk about paratroopers.
Oh,
Yeah, that was a high point. That was-
Ooh, sounds like a good story. I wanna hear
The
that.
high point of his career.
All right, my wife said I got to explain that, but it's basically there was a legislation that went to my committee, Fish and Game, to allow the sale and distribution of monk parrots,
Oh, Quaker parrots. yeah.
Quaker parrots.
Monk parakeets.
Same thing.
Sounds important. Yep.
Oh.
Not really.
Yeah.
Right next to Melvin's marble.
Earth shattering.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most significant things that happened in Concord all this year.
Yes.
It was profound. It was a lot of email on it too.
great.
So
It's classic Hopper.
So anyway, I got up and in the House of, what happens is, just before you vote, they have what's called a PI, which is a parliamentary inquiry. It's supposed to be used for asking the speaker if a motion is legal or not, or this or that. But what it is customarily used for is just before a vote, somebody will do a parliamentary inquiry to basically inform everybody what they're voting on.
Okay.
Because a lot of people have been out in the back drinking coffee and shooting the breeze, telling really bad jokes and stuff like that. And all of a sudden they're coming in to vote and they go, okay, what's House Bill, 207? And then somebody does a parliamentary inquiry, which reminds, because everybody's read the calendar, knows what they're voting on from day to day. But there's so many votes during the day that they might not be quite aware of what's going on when they sit down to vote. So I had to do the parliamentary inquiry for the committee on, I didn't have to, I'm the chairman, so I could do whatever I want, but I did the parliamentary inquiry for the paratroopers, for the parrots, try again, for the monk parrots, and I got up on the House floor and I said that if we don't do something, that the Fish and Game Department is poised and ready with a special crack team of officers called the Parrot Troopers to deal with this,
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why people have been giving me a hard time about that ever since. 'Cause,
Really?
Yeah, it was. I don't take myself too seriously when I go up there. I mean, there's so much stuff we deal with that is very, very serious. I don't take myself too seriously. The only mistake I made as a freshman one time is I tried to make a joke when we were doing capital punishment, but I won't do that again.
Can we hear the joke?
What?
What was the joke?
It was on Capitol.
Twice in a lifetime. Go ahead, give it to us.
I gotta hear it. I gotta hear it.
Well, no, it was,
Nothing makes me laugh like capital punishment. So go ahead and give it to us.
It
We're all
really
big, we're all big
kills you,
fans.
right?
Yeah, he kills. That's right. Good.
I was talking about Draga, and I said,
Oh, yeah,
Hey,
Draga.
remember him, the guy
Yeah,
that killed
Carl,
all
up
the
in-
people up north?
up north,
And
up in
so
Pittsburgh or
And
whatever.
the Democrats were getting up and saying, well, we don't need capital punishment and everything, you know, and all this crap. And I got up and said, so if somebody like Draga gets arrested, convicted, life in jail, he's a hero in jail, the most we can do is you know, take away his cable? Is that it? You know? And I thought it was pretty funny, and nobody else did.
I was expecting something a little edgier
Yeah,
from
it
the
wasn't
build-up.
that.
but
No.
All right.
But anyway, so you don't, when it's that serious, you don't tell jokes. 'Cause
Yeah.
people aren't in the mood, and they're all stuck up. So, but anyway, so just running for office, what was, you know, if you're motivated to, because people up there are pretty motivated to make a difference. That's why you ran.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you're just really got too much time on your hands. How do you go about that?
You go down to City Hall and you sign up.
Yeah.
And a couple of things, just a little thing that both parties do this, but it's kind of sad, is if they, in some elections, a seat's open, and I guess they'll be seat holders, if you want to call them. They have no
Placeholders.
intention of serving, they have no intention of running. They just, Democrats, Republicans, whatever, the party will ask people, sometimes unfortunately, to run, and we've seen it. But I have to say, my first election in '04, I ran really hard. Went door to door, probably went to almost 1,000 houses. I live in Ward 7 is very compact, which I like. It's, the houses are on probably a tenth of an acre. It's easy to get around. You have, 9,000 people roughly, mile and a half by 2 miles. So my first election, I really ran hard. I was passionate. I had my bike, my bicycle. I'd go out. I probably hit about 1,000 houses with literature. Didn't make a dent. But the guy that I ran with, another Republican, our vote margin, he didn't do anything. Just stayed home, just watched TV. And I ran probably 50 votes between the two of us. Second time in '08 when I ran when President Obama, the landslide, I didn't do anything because I knew I was going to get beat. I did better than my first time. And then this time, again, I ran hard. Went out, went door to door. And so you can do anything from doing nothing and staying home to knocking on doors and calling people and dropping off literature and being on shows like this. I don't think this show's going to help much, but
I heard, actually.
It will leave an impression one way or the other.
Well, in my case, it was a little different because Ward 2 has the only active Republican ward committee in the city.
Yeah.
And so we ran as a team. The three of us, we put out literature together, we were names on the same piece of paper.
Were you dating?
No,
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 not that
he's not my
close.
type.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Scandalous.
I'm much too old
He's
for
my
him.
type, though.
Yeah.
think of the Golden Girls.
Yeah, yeah. He's much too old for me.
Wow.
I,
Heartbroken, man.
and it worked. I mean, we were able to pool our resources so that, instead of each one of us having to buy a separate piece of literature to pass out, we had one piece of literature, we put flyers, and we had 3 flyers that went out in the Union Leader 3 different days,
Yeah.
just before election. And we had door hangers, and we did a lot of walking on the wards, and we appeared on Cup TV a few times. And it worked out. Not everybody has that option, but for us, that was the option. And I think if all goes well, depends on who's going to run this next time around.
You going to run again?
I have no idea.
Really?
I really don't.
Yeah, it's amazing. Until you run for office, you don't. Most people, I think, sit home and get all those campaign mailers and all this stuff and go in the trash, in the
Right.
trash.
Yeah.
And as somebody, especially when it's like in New Hampshire, where it's really small time, where you get printouts with 2,000 things,
Yeah.
and it's costing you like $1 or something or whatever. And you don't realize how much money goes into those. It's amazing
Oh,
how
yeah.
much money.
Oh, yeah.
Campaign signs. I get the corrugated plastic ones with 3 colors, and Those are like almost $5 a piece. And
Yeah.
I called up my buddy. I says, I need my sign back. He says, well, it's a Target. I've been using it.
Yeah, I think that the threshold to get in the race is very low. It's $2
Yeah.
to register. Really, which I should have known that they weren't going to pay us much. When it was like $100. I should have known it's only $2. If it was $10,000, then we'd
then
expect
it'd be
something
yeah.
bigger paycheck. But really going door to door and knocking on doors. And Ross said the first time he did it, he didn't have any success. But going back over and over, people see your name, you start to build name recognition, and that's really what it is. I know Cam, who's the third representative from Ward 2, he ran a couple of times and was not successful. But then the third time, he also was elected as a selectman as well.
The other advantage you have in the city, which you may not have in smaller towns, is that we have 3 selectmen per ward, and really all they do is work the polls for the election, and they also select the place where the polls are.
Yeah.
And you have a moderator and a clerk. Well, one of the ways to get your name out, so people know who you are, is to run for those offices. No, well, trust me, they make more money than the state representative does.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, because a selectman makes about $100 or
A day,
$120
for 2 days a year.
for 2 days a year.
Yeah.
So, but it's a non-political, non-partisan kind of work, but it does get your name out in front of the voters, and it's a good way. That's how Cam. I told him, I says, you got a really good name. I mean, Cam DeJong, no one's going to forget it, right? It's just like Saggy, right?
Right.
But they have to hear it enough times.
Yeah.
So by running for selectman, he got his name out there, and I think it helped him. And of course, 2010, I think, was kind of a Republican year pretty much everywhere. But I think it helped.
Yeah, yeah.
Name recognition is important.
The other thing is, if people know I'm a rep, and I'm sure they probably know you guys are reps, and I'm sure you have a similar experience, is I get a lot of complaints. Oh, what you guys are doing up there, and this and that. And I say, why don't you run for office in there? So a lot of people want to complain, but they don't, want to throw their hat in the ring and do anything about it, which is sad. But
Complaining's easy, but doing something about
Well,
it, that's
a
the
lot
hard
of
part.
the problem though is a lot of the complaints that I get are people are are told something in the newspaper, and we know that the reality of it
gospel,
is
yeah.
completely different. They're complaining about the radicalness of the Republican Party, but the radicals in the Republican Party are a few libertarians who are trying to push certain agendas, but they're not even getting through.
Right.
They're and it's the same thing with the Democrats, except their stuff got through. Last year, I was sitting up there during the bathroom bill. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it.
God, yes.
It was insane. It was totally insane. It was Terry Norelli, the Speaker of the House then. It was her baby, and what it was is how in school there's always that 1 or 2 kids that are feminine, and they feel uncomfortable going in the boys' locker room or whatever,
Right.
which is what I feel bad for.
Sure, of course, yeah.
Certainly. I mean, if you have any compassion at all, you feel badly for them.
Sure.
for the Democrats or for the people using the bathroom?
I don't feel that bad for the Democrats. Some days.
Ever.
But anyway, to deal with that, which should have been dealt with on an individual basis by a principal and stuff like that, or let the kids use the teacher's restroom or something. They had the brilliant idea of if somebody was unsure of their gender, that they could use whichever bathroom they felt was appropriate.
I
for
remember
them.
hearing about this, yeah.
And you tell them, you realize that every teenage boy is going to feel like a girl to go in the girls'
Right.
locker room, and there's no way they could
Yeah.
cope with that. They just said, no, they would never do that. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, right. So anyway, that went through the House.
Wow.
That actually.
So it passed
That
the
passed
House. Wow.
the House. The
Yeah.
Senate, the president of the Senate, I forget who.
Larson?
Huh?
Sylvia Larson?
Yeah, I think it was Larson got all really mad at all the Republicans and all the hate mail and called us Nazis or some crap. But she ended up killing in the Senate because I think mainly because our governor didn't want to be embarrassed by it if it got
Right.
to him.
Yeah.
Well, just a little bit behind the scenes, a lot of the Democrats, even some of the ones who voted against it, didn't want it to go through, but they just did it out of party loyalty, but they were hoping that it was going to die.
Oh, yeah, I've talked to quite a few of them who I'd ask them, what the heck was that crap, you know? They go, well, you know, I was kind of embarrassed to vote for it too, but, you know, our party
Had to,
wanted
yeah.
it.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow. So when you hear about, in the news about how radical the Republicans are, it's,
Oh, it's on both sides, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have some liberal tendencies, but I think that's insane. I mean, I would
you
never
don't have to
support
admit
anything like that.
you know? You can-
I came out a while ago. Some
Yeah,
people
I
know.
guess,
You know, I'm pro-gay marriage and stuff like that. You know, what can you do?
Can we bleep
So
that?
changing the subject.
I'm pro-choice, but, you know, we don't, you know, but carry on.
Carry on.
So you talked about getting calls with complaints. What about other calls? Do you get the opportunity to answer questions for your constituents and help them out, or maybe shine a light on things that, or do you only find that you get more of the negative type of feedback?
It's funny, me and Gary were talking about this earlier, and then Wynn and Mike are on the other side of the question, but on right to work, I find, I don't have a whole lot of constituent calls unless it's, somebody's pushing it somewhere. And so I got a ton of calls on right to work, but of course I voted against it. So a lot of my people were voting, because my ward, the way the composition,
Now, wait,
they were
wait.
thanking me.
I just want, in all honesty, because I don't know about you, but I was voting against it because the union guys had awesome hamburgers out in front of the State House. Is that your?
That and the open bar.
Oh man, I love hamburgers.
Yeah,
Everybody's got a price, and there's yours. Hey,
Can we clarify for people who don't know what that is, right to work?
Right to work for less.
No.
Oh, boy.
right to
There you go.
Without the
Okay.
spin, yes.
Okay.
yes.
Number is
Right to work.
413-0223.
Yeah. Right to work is, it's a freedom of choice law. Basically what it says, you go to a company, if it's a union shop, you don't have to join the union. You do not have to pay so-called fees for them to represent you if you don't want to,
Right.
okay? You can join the union if you want. It is not an anti-union bill.
Right.
Companies can still organize. They can. The only thing they can't do is have a closed shop. If a company deserves a union, they'll get one. Okay. They mistreat their people, the union will be knocking at the door. Unfortunately, the way it's being spun is that it's anti-union, anti-collective bargaining, and it isn't. It's basically a freedom of choice bill.
You want to step outside, Win?
No.
No.
Basically, I'm a coward.
Now, I don't want to spend all
I
night on
lived
right to work.
71 years.
Huh?
That's how I lived 71 years.
Very safe. Yes.
I can run.
I don't want to spend all night on right to work, but I'm going to give Ross a chance to just explain his angle on that. If it wasn't just the hamburgers, I don't know.
No, I liked your thing about Tip O'Neill, how you can eat somebody's food and then vote against him. There's many reasons why I didn't think right to work was basically useless. New Hampshire already has our unionization rate is less than actually several right to work states. It's less than the national average. In most of our union employees are public employees, fire, police, teachers. So a private employee that comes in, let's say General Motors wanted to open up a company in New Hampshire, maybe 2 to 3% of New Hampshire private sector workers are in the union. So it really wouldn't impact them to begin with. And I guess I'd make an analogy to the House. Now, when the Democrats controlled the House, there were no guns allowed in there. Majority rules, the Republicans take over now because we have the majority. We voted in concealed weapons.
Yeah, but
It's
that's completely different.
No, it's the same.
No, it isn't.
As far as the workplace,
Just give me
though.
a second. The reason the Democrats did that was for the safety of the Republicans. Because as a Republican, I can tell you, if you sit down in that hall when there's not that much air going through and you listen to a Democrat for more than 5 or 10 minutes, you want to blow your own brains out. So that's what that was about.
Well, that's very considerate, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah. But so, if you have a workplace And it did make an impact on me, was the fairness argument. That was probably the strongest argument. But if a majority of the workplace wants a union, I guess majority rules. I know Wayne doesn't agree with that, but
The other
So
thing,
if a majority of people are pro-choice, right, then that means that everybody has to be.
no, it means that the state, if let's say in a state, if the majority of the people want the death penalty, want to get rid of the death penalty.
that's fine, that's
then-
fine.
Then would it be one way or the other? Would
But
you either have
but that's government. The workplace is a different place, it's a different issue, it's
but
personal.
anyway, I don't like, the other thing too is it's already a law that in New Hampshire that you can't be forced to join the union.
Yeah, it is.
The only thing the unions are, people are required to pay as part of the negotiating fee because they benefit from that negotiating
Yeah.
fee. And so I've always voted, every 2 years, right to work comes up, I've always voted against it.
Yeah.
The speaker is really angry with me about it, but, whatever.
Well, that, your op-ed where you said you'd rather be driving a motorcycle than voting up there.
Oh, yeah.
Gary, you cause all kinds of trouble, don't you?
I can't help it.
We thought you were serious. A lot of the freshmen thought you were serious and pretty upset with you.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was sarcastic. I wrote an op-ed about, because I went in, we were doing right to work, and there were, Speaker O'Brien had scheduled a veto override. And it was obvious he didn't have the votes, so he didn't have the vote. I mean, that's his prerogative. Speaker has a lot of options, and that was one of them. So he didn't have the option, didn't have the vote. So I go into the room after we're closing, and I heard a couple of the Democrats going, "Oh, I can't believe this. We're not going to have the vote on right to work. I showed up today to do the right on work, and then I can't do it today. This is ridiculous." And they're all upset.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking about, you're supposed to be here every week anyway.
Right.
What does it matter if we have it this week, next week, or the week after?
Right.
And so I wrote an op-ed piece about, how inconsiderate it was of O'Brien to have that. What he's really doing, it's got nothing to do with the votes. It's his way of manipulating people to force them to come back week after week after week. And I could be out riding my motorcycle, but now I have to go back and vote on right to work possibly next week. And so I was being really sarcastic.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't think I
It
was.
was so sarcastic it came across as being serious.
I saw the sarcasm in it, and I thought it was funny, and then everybody reacted the way they did,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
though you were being nasty about it.
Yeah,
And, which made it even more funny to me. Because then you had to explain it, which made it, watching you squirm was even more fun.
So you had some success introducing a bill also as a drug dealer. You had pharmacist. I know you
Yeah.
used that
Same
term.
thing.
Anyway,
Yeah.
you
Same
had
thing,
a thing
yeah.
that allow
What's in a name?
to allow pharmacists to what do you call it?
Expanded to give more vaccinations.
Yeah, to do
Currently it was
vaccinations.
flu, and then they were going to add 2 more.
Yeah.
Then you had a lot of the kooks were upset because they believe vaccines are the work of the devil and that they're going to poison
not?
everybody. In some cases.
Okay.
But, so fortunately, we were able to override their concerns and pass it.
How'd that go? Was that must have been the process must have been interesting.
I was surprised. I didn't see that coming as far as the people who thought vaccines were evil. So I was a little bit taken back by that. Were you one of those people?
No,
Oh, okay.
I
he's
didn't
just-
think that they
he-
caused autism either.
I'm just evil.
But
Vaccinations have nothing to do with it.
it was nice for it to pass. Of course, one thing I did get beat down on, I don't know if you did, with Will Infantine, I had sponsored an expanded gambling bill, but that went down. I think there's probably 3 of us voted for it.
I voted
Really?
for it.
3?
I did. I must have been the third one because I.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Mike's into gambling, too.
Yeah, we talked on the phone about. I always vote against gambling.
No, you're just
Yeah,
personally
I think-
afraid of gambling? or
No,
what's-
I mean, I get married, all right? I already, and that was
That's a
like
gamble
enough.
right there.
Is that
Yeah.
what if it was a shotgun
It's
wedding?
so good that they've done it 3 times, yeah.
Yeah, see?
At the
You
same-
got, you're
what are you, a
addicted.
Muslim?
There was a little thing called divorce in between. There was a little thing called divorce in between, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So
Now, I
it's
knew
not-
these 2 guys were coming, so I kind of checked what bills they'd introduced, but I didn't know you weren't sure you were coming, Mike. So what have you done this year that's so?
I was a co-sponsor on the Castle Doctrine bill, Leo
I
Pepino's
think
bill.
people should be able to own castles.
Yeah, I've always,
Absolutely.
especially
You
if
can
you have a
afford
moat,
one,
you have a
it's
nice
great.
moat, with some alligators, something like
Yeah.
that. The castle doctrine bill
why don't you
was
explain-
inexpedient.
Yeah,
That's
you gotta explain
that's
what
your
it is.
your right to defend yourself
Yes.
in any place that you have a legal right to be. So it's not just your home. It could be if you're in your car, if you're in your business. If somebody is going to carjack you in your car or to invade your place of business or you're in a home invasion, you have the right to use deadly force to protect yourself. You don't have. Some states have you have to attempt to retreat first before you
Right.
can use that.
Right.
And I'm originally from Florida, and we don't have that there. And I thought that'd be a good thing to have in New Hampshire as well. So it's basically if somebody busts your door down, they're taking their own life in their hands coming into your property.
Yeah.
And you're not obligated to try to talk them out of it or jump out the window or something like that. The mere act of them coming in your house is enough to warrant you're using deadly force.
It's like the welcome wagging or something.
Yeah, Avon lady doesn't do that. Yeah, and so that was one that was found inexpedient to legislate, and
Yeah,
it
that's-
kind
my
of got
wife-
rolled into
My wife
another.
has been waiting for that to go through so she can blow me away when I come in late after a
You
meeting.
just say that you're an intruder.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
what did your wife think about the corporal punishment, the teachers that allowed teachers, gave them a little bit of cover?
She can't wait to beat your kid. Is that what you're saying?
It's going to be a good school year. She's been lifting weights all winter. All summer.
Yeah, but didn't the Castle Doctrine bill get melded somehow?
Yeah, it got
into
melded
the-
in that
veto.
mine got
Constitutional carry?
mine got inexpedient to legislate, and then it came up again. It's been rolled into another bill,
And then they
so
dropped
it's
it.
floating out there. I think it was
Well,
retained.
it was
was vetoed, I
That
thought.
got vetoed.
Yeah, it was
okay.
vetoed.
The Byrd bill got vetoed
Right,
by
right.
governor, but what they did do is they took
you're
the
absolutely right.
the constitutional carry portion of it out
Right.
because in the Senate.
Yeah.
I voted against that bill when it had constitutional carry in it.
Okay.
Because I want to know that the guy who's carrying a gun that I don't know he has at least had somebody look at him to see if the guy's a nutcase.
Well, yeah, but I got a permit to carry.
You're not a nutcase yet.
Really?
Well,
No, come on.
But
Well, you're a
you know, but you heard the excuse. Well, you can get your gun from your father. Yeah. That doesn't mean you can carry it concealed.
Right.
I mean, but so I had a problem with that and being able to carry the gun unknown
Right.
in a car, loaded, when the trooper comes up to talk to you about speeding.
Right.
So when they dropped that, then I voted for the Ward Byrd bill, and I will vote to override the governor's veto on that one.
Right. I promised Ross he could tell us a little bit why I presume that he enjoys the frustration of being up in Concord so much he wants to expand that to be on a school board.
he's a glutton for
God
punishment,
bless you, my
obviously.
son.
That's right.
In this city.
Yeah, so I'm
He's
running.
speechless.
So I'm running for. I can't get a word in. So I'm running for school committee at large. Basically, I have 3 kids in the
You're
Manchester
still
school
stuck on my
system.
wife beating your kid, isn't it?
Yeah, basically.
then,
So
okay.
high school, middle school, grade school. I volunteered as a teacher's aide last year. I'll probably do it again in the future. One of the things that I'm concerned about is when I volunteered as a teacher aide, there was like 28 kids in the grade school class. I think that's too large of a class, personally. Some of the kids have emotional or discipline problems. Some of them have learning disabilities, and then you got the regular kids who are, just full of energy anyway. And so anyway, our schools definitely need a lot of work. And one of the ways, and I know you're going to disagree with this, but I've asked the city to look into, there's a loophole in our gambling laws, charitable gambling. And I've asked the city to look into charitable gambling, because traditionally and historically, healthcare and education were done by charitable organizations. So I've asked the city to explore using charitable gambling to help partially fund the Manchester school systems.
So we could have the kids dealing cards.
Or roulette, or,
Yeah, roulette,
that-
roulette tables.
Got to learn sometime.
Yeah.
Math skill.
Mask,
Yeah.
exactly.
Card
Prepares for a
counting.
career working in casinos. you
Yeah,
know.
Yeah.
absolutely.
When we ever have them, as soon as Lou gets his way, we'll.
Well, and I know you disagree, I'm a big proponent of gambling anyway, in
Yeah.
general, even for the state, expanded gambling. I mean, in New Hampshire, we overly rely on the real estate tax. I can't imagine anybody's going to disagree with that. We need another revenue source. We don't have a sales tax, we don't have an income tax, we're not going to get one. And that's the way the majority of people in New Hampshire want it, so we need another revenue source. And I think expanding gambling is the way to go, personally.
I agree with you.
I think Ball is with me. I don't know about Win, how you feel on gambling?
I feel casino gambling would be fine. I don't want video slots
Right.
Okay.
So
on
it's
every
good.
street
That's what
corner.
I'm-
That's just opening it up to the wrong clientele. I mean, but casino gambling, where it's a destination, right? Maybe 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5 in the state. I don't know how many.
It's a very controlled environment.
It's a controlled environment, and people who go there have the money to gamble.
All right.
The guy who puts $2
Gary, how do you
in
feel?
in a slot, on the
Well,
in the drugstore is not,
Right.
Okay, I'll throw my oar in the water on this one. I always vote against gambling, period. And there's multiple reasons. One, if you look at most of the gambling proposals,
Yeah.
they have allowed a casino to open up in points A, B, and C.
Okay.
The Constitution says specifically that government is not for the private emolument of any one person, group, or organization, i.e., you are going to allow company A, B, and C to make a damn fortune, whereas if I want to open up a casino, no, you can't open up a casino.
So you're against it because you want to open up your own casino?
Exactly. And
Gary,
that way I get more free food. And so,
that's a grenade.
Nice.
A lot of ladies hang around the casinos, too.
well, yeah, we can use the kids from the school that have already been trained. So anyway,
Perfect.
so that's one reason.
It's a jobs program.
Jobs program. So that's one thing, is I think it's, the proposals I have seen thus far are all unconstitutional, period. Secondly.
Well, I'm a constitutional scholar, and they're not unconstitutional. So
I
I'll
know,
tell you
so's
that.
Obama, big deal.
Barry?
Anyway, the other thing is if you look at places like Connecticut,
Yeah.
okay, all casinos are vacuum cleaners, and all they do is suck up all the disposable income in a given area. Because the people that were gonna go work on their shed that week and go down the hardware store and buy, a pistol drill or whatever they were gonna do, they've already spent it on Friday night. So this big corporation now has all the money that was gonna go to this local stores for, where people got lunch or dinner and stuff like that. It takes a lot of that disposable income and throws it into the pocket of somebody, the rich and aimless. It also tends to, like all our sin taxes, like cigarettes, alcohol, and this, or the gambling, the state, lottery, it really sucks up the money of the middle class and lower middle class. It doesn't. People who are rich don't go into gamble because they've already got it. What are they gambling
Right.
for?
True.
Okay, so
The excitement.
yeah, it's wicked exciting.
Well, that's
So-
why we're going to put it on the mass border, and then we're going to get all the
It is,
mass people.
it is also, if you look at it, it tends to be something of diminishing returns in that as time goes on and more casinos get built up, there's there's less and less money available, or people that are ridiculous enough to waste their money on it. So I think it's immoral and a bad way to go. The premise that the property tax is unfair, I disagree with.
Not that it's unfair that we overly rely on it. You shouldn't have all your eggs in one basket, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it depends on how good the basket is. But so, if property tax is to me really fair because you are not required to buy a $500,000 house. If you don't want to pay that much taxes, you can live in a trailer.
Yeah, so let's say you have a
So it's
millionaire in a
optional.
trailer and a guy on Social Security in a trailer. So you're going to have this huge income disparity, but they'll be paying the same real estate tax.
So that's their free choice.
But
Yeah,
it's
but then
their
the-
free choice if they want to gamble, too.
Well, that's
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that I'm for casino gambling, is because it's a matter of freedom. I mean, if we talk about, you talk about when the sweepstakes started,
Yeah.
Governor Wes Powell, I go back that far, maybe you don't.
No.
He's the one that started it, right? Wesley Powell. He was an attorney from
This is-
Hampton Falls,
Wh-
who was our governor.
Which century was that?
It was last century, but very early on.
mid-century.
I heard the same arguments. I heard the very same arguments against the sweepstakes.
Yeah, and they were true.
No, they weren't.
Yeah, you go
Look-
go talk to anybody who owns a little variety store.
Yeah.
Ask them who the hell is pissing away all their money on their.
Me.
Yeah, but
but
but what is that the proper role of government for us to decide? You can't afford this type of entertainment.
Yeah.
See, that's, I mean,
absolutely.
poor people shouldn't go to
I'm
the
not a
movies then
libertarian.
because it costs $9 to see an IMAX. So poor people shouldn't do that either, right? I mean,
No, they
we,
should
you
get
know,
a
they shouldn't buy
$3
cigarettes, they shouldn't buy beer because they don't have the money, as far as I'm concerned.
Shouldn't buy lobster with their EBT cards either.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean,
And
so I mean,
tobacco
and it-
tax is the most regressive tax in the state.
True.
right.
Because it's, if you look at the makeup of the population, the population who smoke are the lower income people.
Okay, I just don't like you now. Anyway.
Just when it's
Let me get my plug
just when
on
it's
my
getting
bill real
good, we
quick.
got to start to
Wait,
wrap up.
Okay, next week, next week we're doing on bullying. We have Dr. Malcolm Smith, who's coming in here to talk about bullying. He's a UNH professor who is very versed in this. A lot of the things that we believe about bullying or presume are really not true. He's done a great deal of research. We're hoping people will tune in with their kids. So if you have questions about bullying, you can call in, or if you have or want to share your experience, you can do that. Let's see, the week after that, we've got the Director of Fish and Game coming in to talk about the upcoming hunting season and the fact that I have legislation for the visually impaired to go hunting.
Caution, blind man shooting.
No, no, so you can use a 30-round clip.
That's exciting.
Oh, it is. It is. It should add a lot more excitement to the next.
Now you
upcoming-
know why I don't hunt anymore. Yeah.
Ross is pointing to a piece of paper. That's excellent, Ross. No, no, go ahead. We
Just
got time.
just a quick plug-in on the agricultural bill. Josh Davenport,
Oh, yeah,
prime
yeah.
sponsor, I co-sponsored. Basically, we just want to get it out there. It would allow agricultural products in New Hampshire, dairy products, meat, chicken, poultry, that are produced by New Hampshire farmers that is only intended to be used in the state of New Hampshire to be free of federal regulations.
You might want to talk to Representative Crease, too. He's having a hard time trying to sell his elk. It's the same kind of thing where there's so much regulation. He can't. He's got all these elk, and it's difficult for him to either sell them or do anything with them because there's so much regulation. We should be eliminating regulation as much as possible to help businesses grow.
We got to go.
We gotta go. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, guys, gentlemen, for showing up, and I'm glad you ran for office.
That
Thank
was
you.
a great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.